In the tranquil stillness of a secluded mountain monastery, a new disciple named Tenzin approached his master, who was seated under an ancient Bodhi tree. The young man, eager to learn the profound teachings of Buddhism, bowed deeply before the master, who was known for his wisdom and compassion. "Master," Tenzin began, his voice filled with curiosity, "I have traveled far and long to seek the truth. My mind is filled with questions and ideas. Please, enlighten me about the nature of reality and the teachings of the Buddha." The master smiled gently, his eyes reflecting the serenity of the mountains that surrounded them. He gestured for Tenzin to sit beside him and asked, "Would you like some tea?" Tenzin, slightly puzzled by the seemingly simple offer, nodded. The master began to pour tea into Tenzin's cup, and continued pouring even after the cup was full. The tea overflowed, spilling onto the ground. "Master, the cup is full. No more tea will fit." Tenzin exclaimed. The master stopped pouring and looked deeply into Tenzin's eyes. "Just as this cup is full, so too is your mind, full of ideas, opinions, and preconceptions. To truly learn, you must first empty your mind, just as this cup must be emptied before it can be filled again." Tenzin fell silent, realizing the profound lesson hidden within the simple act. The master continued, "In the same way, the teachings of the Buddha can only be understood when you let go of your attachments and preconceptions. The nature of reality is not something that can be grasped with a mind already full. It is like the tea, if the cup is not empty, you cannot receive it." The master then said, "The Buddha taught that everything we perceive, the world, our thoughts, our feelings, is like an illusion. It is not truly real, but rather, it is empty of inherent existence. This emptiness does not mean nothingness, but rather that everything is interconnected and arises due to conditions. To understand this, you must first be willing to see with fresh eyes, to empty your cup." Tenzin nodded slowly, absorbing the master's words. He realized that his journey had just begun, not with the filling of his mind with new knowledge, but with the emptying of his mind, to truly understand the nature of reality. "Now," the master said softly, "let us explore the profound teachings of emptiness and the Buddha's wisdom. But remember, as you listen, keep your cup empty." Isn't it fascinating how we can feel physical objects and observe the events unfolding around us? We can visualize vivid images in our minds, and we experience deep emotions within our consciousness. Yet, the Buddha boldly declared that all these things are not real. Can you believe it? They are merely illusions, and their true essence is emptiness. The astonishing concept of emptiness. Most scientists, scholars, and Western philosophers who delve into Buddhism are completely astonished and overwhelmed by the bold and transcendent discoveries of the Buddha. Truly, the concept of emptiness of all phenomena is mind-boggling. It's extremely difficult to grasp because it goes beyond common understanding and intelligence. Think about it, throughout the entire evolution of human civilization, and even in our modern world, no philosophical or religious system has ever proposed such a profound concept, except Buddhism. The challenge we face in understanding emptiness. The Dalai Lama wisely noted that even if we manage to understand emptiness through reasoning and come to accept that the individual self or ego does not exist, life still challenges us. Our lived experience is constantly dominated by the reality around us, always appearing to contradict this understanding. How frustrating. So, even though we might intellectually grasp what non-self means, we still feel ourselves and others, the good and the bad, the right and the wrong, every single day. How can we apply emptiness in our lives? So, what do we do with this understanding? How can we truly comprehend and effectively apply the concept of emptiness in our spiritual practice and everyday life? This is crucial. Let's dive deep into this topic in today's video. And hey, if you're enjoying this journey of exploration, don't forget to like this video and hit that subscribe button. We've got so much more to discover together. The profound essence of emptiness. Emptiness implies something truly profound. The essence of the world and all things within it is void. Yes, you heard that right. It means they are not real, do not have true existence, and do not possess an independent nature. All phenomena, whether material or mental, are simply temporary formations, arising due to causes and conditions. Can you imagine that? They're all created by the mind, and they are not inherently real. This idea is fundamental in Buddhism, and it's what sets Buddhism apart from other religions, sciences, and philosophical schools. Emptiness in our everyday lives. Now, you might be wondering, does this mean that the house we live in, the car we drive, or the food and clothing we use daily aren't real? That's a startling thought, isn't it? The answer is nuanced. It doesn't mean these things absolutely do not exist. They do, but they aren't truly real. Think of them as the virtual games in the digital world. They exist, but they aren't real in the ultimate sense. The 14th Dalai Lama even used quantum physics, also known as modern quantum mechanics, to relate this to the concept of emptiness, quantum physics, and the wonder of emptiness. We know that the material world is composed of countless atoms from over 100 elements found in the universe. Just imagine it. An atom has a nucleus at its center with a cloud of electrons whizzing around it. Atoms are made up of one or two types of particles, protons and neutrons. For example, the simplest atom, hydrogen, has a nucleus with just one proton, while the nucleus of helium contains 2 protons and 2 neutrons. Protons, amazingly, are made of 2 up quarks and 1 down quark, while neutrons consist of 1 up quark and 2 down quarks. This is the mind-blowing way modern physics describes the structure of atoms. But here's the kicker: atoms are mostly empty. That's right, they are primarily empty space because quarks and electrons cannot exist independently. They depend on each other to form atoms. The astonishing nature of atoms. Picture this: an atom consists of a nucleus at the center with electrons orbiting around it. The nucleus is only 1/1000 th of the diameter of the atom. Wow! The diameter of an atom, such as carbon, is 0.5 nanometers, which is equivalent to 1/2 billion meters. The nucleus is composed of protons and neutrons, and these particles are only 1/millionth of a nanometer in size. Can you believe it? Protons are 50 million times smaller than atoms, and quarks are even smaller. To help you visualize, if we take a carbon atom, which is already tiny at 0.5 nanometers, and magnify it to the size of the Earth, yes, you read that right, magnifying it by about 24 million trillion times, quarks would still be less than 5 millimeters in size. That's smaller than a grain of rice. This shows just how empty atoms really are. The matter that makes up atoms, such as quarks and electrons, isn't even truly real entities because they cannot exist independently. Isn't that mind-blowing? The illusory nature of matter. A single quark cannot exist on its own. 3 quarks must combine to form a proton or neutron. Similarly, an electron can never stand still. It's constantly in motion, and its momentum and position cannot be determined simultaneously, according to Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. The essence of this principle is that we cannot definitively capture and determine the electron. Incredible, right? From a Buddhist perspective, quarks cannot exist independently, and electrons are just like flowers in the sky. They're not real. It's only due to a fleeting moment of ignorance that we perceive the combination of causes and conditions forming atoms, and from there, creating galaxies, stars, mountains, rivers, and living beings. Can you see it now? It's just the simultaneous perception of the senses: eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, but in reality, there is nothing at all. The profound truth: 3 realms are only mind. This leads us to an incredible conclusion found in the treatise Cheng Weisher Luan, establishing the theory of consciousness only, translated by Xuanzang. The 3 realms are only mind, all dharmas are only consciousness. Wow! Buddhist practitioners who have attained enlightenment realize that the mind is like space, without substance, embodying the true form of the universe. Isn't that amazing? Modern science has achieved some impressive feats, like breaking the nucleus of a uranium-235 atom to create 3 other atoms: uranium-236, barium, and krypton. But get this, science still can't break protons or neutrons because that would require infinite energy. Scientists call the phenomenon of quarks being confined within protons or neutrons permanent confinement, meaning they can never be separated. Incredible, right? Permanent confinement and Buddhist wisdom. In Buddhism, this permanent confinement is referred to as the mind's attachment that arises from the initial moment of ignorance. Because of this ignorance, we perceive atoms and the entire universe. But here's the mind-bending truth. Buddhist scriptures state that the mind is boundless and limitless, unrestricted by space and time, and thus has the ability to break free from this confinement. Isn't that liberating? Due to that initial moment of ignorance, we see the material world and the world of living beings. But without this ignorance, the illusory world would disappear, because it's not real. It's just like when you turn off your computer. Everything on the screen vanishes because it was merely an illusion, not real. Can you imagine that? The state of no mind, a journey beyond illusion. In the state of no mind, without that initial moment of ignorance, we will see the world as empty, unreal, non-existent. However, there remains an illusory structure, and being an illusion, it's not real. It only appears when we initiate a thought. Buddhism calls this beginningless ignorance. It's mind-blowing, isn't it? In the state of no mind, there's no longer a distinction between consciousness and matter. Material atoms are simply a form of consciousness that has become rigid due to attachment, meaning it's perceived as real due to the obstruction of true understanding. Beginningless ignorance is a state of non-perception, non-matter, without space and time, where quarks and electrons exist only in potential form, not yet fully formed, scattered and seemingly non-existent. They are merely quantum forms of an invisible energy, but when that initial moment of ignorance arises, they immediately appear as material atoms. Can you imagine? The German philosopher Immanuel Kant referred to this structure of matter as thing in itself, meaning something unknowable because it cannot be truly known. And today, modern scientists, including Niels Bohr, the Danish physicist who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1922, agree that isolated fundamental particles are only abstract. Virtual particles. Mind-blowing, right? Quantum physics meets Buddhist emptiness. Werner Heisenberg, the German theoretical physicist who won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1932 and discovered the uncertainty principle, stated that atoms and fundamental particles form a potential world, capable of existing but not a world of real objects. Atoms are not real things. Incredible, the potential world Heisenberg referred to must wait for certain conditions to become real. It must wait for a second ignorance, that initial moment of ignorance, in Buddhist terminology. In common terms, this is called consciousness or awareness. When material structures develop into living beings with sensory organs such as eyes, ears, nose, tongue, body, and brain, Buddhism refers to these as the six senses. When the six senses interact with their corresponding objects, form, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, the six consciousnesses arise: seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. Isn't it fascinating how this complex interaction forms our perception of reality? The dance of consciousness and reality. Consciousness is this incredible, integrated perception that arises from the six senses interacting with the six sense objects, leading to the generation of thoughts. Buddhism teaches that matter is just an illusion, it's not real. But here's the tricky part: when the mind generates a thought, matter is mistakenly perceived as real. That's why Buddhism calls this the initial moment of ignorance. One thought leads to another, and before you know it, thoughts continuously generate awareness, making us believe that there's an independent external world existing outside of consciousness. It's like a magic trick that keeps us guessing, but here's where it gets even more fascinating. When quantum physicists dive deep into their research, they discover that there's no independent objective world outside of consciousness. Can you believe it? Only the subjective world of consciousness exists, transforming illusions into reality. John von Neumann, a brilliant American mathematician of Hungarian origin who made significant contributions to quantum physics and computer science, stated, "Nothing is real unless consciousness exists." Wow! All real things are made up of consciousness. This idea completely turns materialism on its head. Enlightenment and the next great leap. When a meditation practitioner reaches the stage of initial enlightenment, they've entered the state of beginningless ignorance. At this stage, they understand emptiness. But guess what? This is still not full enlightenment. They have to take one more incredible step. The sutras describe this as advancing one step further beyond the pole of 100 feet. Picture it, a person climbs a 100-foot pole, and just when they reach the top, they must take one more step to achieve true enlightenment, where there is no longer any attachment, described as dwelling nowhere and generating the mind. Isn't that an awe-inspiring challenge? But what is that final step? It's returning to the initial moment of ignorance. You might wonder, why return to delusion after achieving enlightenment? But here's the profound truth, it's not really about returning to delusion. It's about returning to the ordinary world with a completely transformed perspective. To see mountains as mountains, water as water, and all things as they are, but without any attachment. Everything appears normal, just like it does to everyone else, but the mind has changed. It's free from attachment because it has realized emptiness and the true nature of reality. Can you feel the liberation in that realization, the non-attached mind and ultimate freedom? This is where the Heart Sutra's profound wisdom comes into play. There is no ignorance and no end to ignorance, no aging and no end to aging and death, no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no wisdom and no attainment, with nothing to attain. Wow, that's powerful. The enlightened person can freely act without attachment, living in the world just like an ordinary person, but without being bound by phenomena. The phenomenon of confinement within the atomic nucleus symbolizes the mind's attachment, the cycle of birth and death. Breaking free from this confinement symbolizes liberation from birth and death, allowing for ultimate freedom, living in the Dharma realm where nothing obstructs anything else. Isn't that the essence of true freedom? The sixth patriarch Huineng and several other enlightened masters, such as Hans Han and Shurda, even left behind incorruptible bodies at Nanhua Temple in Guangdong Province, China. Isn't that amazing? Emptiness, the proof and the power. To sum it up, emptiness in Buddhism is clearly stated in the Heart Sutra and Nagarjuna's Middle Way treatise. But here's the incredible part, it's not just a philosophical concept, it's proven in quantum physics. The three types of particles that make up the atom, up quarks, down quarks, and electrons, are merely virtual particles that cannot exist independently. They must rely on each other to exist, demonstrating the principle of dependent origination. Atoms are actually empty, and what we perceive as solid matter is just an illusion created by the electron cloud around the nucleus. Isn't that mind-blowing? Emptiness in the digital age. The concept of emptiness is also vividly demonstrated through the invention of computers. Think about it, everything we see on a computer screen, from text to images, sound to video, is just an illusion. These phenomena are the result of the interdependent arising of electrons moving as an electric current, represented by the binary digits 0 and 1. Isn't it incredible that we can see and interact with these objects as if they're real, yet their essence is emptiness? There's nothing substantial behind what we see, it's all just a brilliant illusion, and here's the kicker, electrons, after all, are not independent entities that can exist on their own. This highlights the ultimate reality, the emptiness of the universe and all things is clear, undeniable, and astonishing. Matter only appears to exist because of the mind's attachment. Rooted in that initial moment of ignorance. The mind's attachment is incredibly strong, persisting even after the physical body dies, leading to rebirth in another body, in another life. But here's the good news, when we achieve complete enlightenment, sweeping away all wrong habits, the mind will finally be free from attachment. Isn't that an exhilarating thought? The power and purpose of emptiness. Realizing emptiness isn't about clinging to nothingness, because that would lead to despair. No, realizing emptiness is about harmonizing our actions and behaviors with the ultimate truth. When we understand that all phenomena are impermanent, we realize that everything we perceive is not truly real. It's just temporarily existing, not permanent. Understanding that all dharmas are without self means we grasp that things don't have an inherent nature or self-identity. And when we truly understand this, we'll cherish this fragile life and the lives of all beings. We'll stop overvaluing the ego, which leads to harming others for self-benefit. Instead, we'll live with compassion, avoiding deception and competition. Imagine a world where everyone lived this way. What peace and harmony would prevail? Emptiness, the foundation for peace and happiness. Understanding emptiness reveals something even more beautiful. It's infinite, with infinite applications. There's enough room to accommodate all beings without the need for competition. Can you see how this is the foundation for building peace and happiness across the entire world? It's breathtaking. The Heart Sutra's profound message, the concept of emptiness, is most concentrated in the Heart Sutra, Prajnaparamita Hridaya. This profound sutra, though short, holds immense wisdom. The Chinese version, translated by Xuanzang, contains only 260 characters, yet its teachings are boundless. The opening lines are truly awe-inspiring. Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva, while practicing deeply the Prajnaparamita, clearly saw that all 5 skandhas are empty, and thus relieved all suffering and distress. Shariputra, form does not differ from emptiness, emptiness does not differ from form. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form. The same is true of feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Shariputra, all dharmas are marked with emptiness. They are neither born nor destroyed, neither stained nor pure, neither increase nor decrease. Therefore, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no mental formation, no consciousness, no eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, mind, no form, sound, smell, taste, touch, thought, no eye consciousness, up to and including no mind consciousness, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to and including no old age and death, and no end of old age and death, no suffering, cause, cessation, and path, no wisdom and no attainment. With nothing to attain, as we wrap up, I hope today's video has given you a clearer, more heartfelt understanding of emptiness. Isn't it amazing to see how these profound concepts can transform our practice and daily lives? Remember, realizing emptiness isn't about detachment from life, it's about living with deeper awareness, compassion, and freedom. Let's take this understanding and apply it to create a life of true peace and happiness, both for ourselves and for the world around us.